masks slip down. You're doing a lot of action. You can't really adjust it in the middle of the match. Or I think they're being a little bit lax on when you're on court if you have to be wearing it. But if you do have, like we said, an outbreak among a team or an outbreak among players that are playing, volleyball is kind of a sport where everybody's going to touch the same ball with their hands, and that's going to happen. Like in soccer and field hockey, two sports where you could presumably say, yeah, you could have a case with a team or with a player that is playing on the floor, on the court or field, and there's a risk, but the risk of transmission is low. In volleyball, it's an indoor game. The ball is being touched by everyone. If your mask comes down, the ball is in close proximity to your face. Um, that's a high risk of transmission among athletes in play. So it's definitely an interesting situation, and hopefully this is just a matter of they did some contact tracing and came back with some changes they needed to make, and hopefully we don't see an outbreak come out of this.
Yeah, that would be the prime hope right there, I think, and concern that we don't see an outbreak out of this for sure. It's kind of looking at it, we certainly hope that contract tracing does its job and that there is nobody that gets, deathly ill over this at all, and that the teams will eventually be able to reschedule, their activities. I'm not sure what the protocol is right now for them to have to go through, whether they're going to be quarantined for a while, whether they're going to be in isolation. When will Notre Dame actually be able to go back to South Bend? A lot of questions still remain here. We'll have to see on those. But, Jeff, we talked about a close match. It certainly was close in some of the sets with the Cards start the season 0-1. So, final thoughts, I guess, on that.
Yeah, the only surprise is that it was only 3 sets. I mean, otherwise this is a typical match for us versus Notre Dame. We talked about last week how many matches against Notre Dame. It was 5 of the 6 previous matches against Notre Dame before this one went 5 sets. It's this is par for the course when playing them. This was Notre Dame was the team that we played that we had like 5 overtimes in a basketball game once. I mean, this is what we do. So in a lot of ways, this is not at all surprising. That's unfortunately we came out on the wrong side of that. We'll have a chance to look at it and figure out how to correct things going forward. This is normally what non-conference matches are all about when you start the season. So, 2020 is weird. So that's what we've got.
Moving on over to another sport. This one took place actually off campus earlier this week. We saw Louisville women's soccer go from Miami, Florida to Tallahassee, Florida. Took on a very, very good Florida State women's soccer team and barely lost that one 1-0. And I guess we'll start with you, Case. Gabby Cazellas was a shining star.
Yeah, Louisville played this match kind of how you expected them to. They parked the bus from the very beginning. Parking the bus is something you usually see a team do if they consider themselves to be outmatched and can steal an early goal. You somehow manage to get ahead in a game that you maybe shouldn't be, and then you just put everybody on defense and hope for the best. It has its pros and cons. In addition to blocking up the entire defensive third for the opposing team, it also blocks up the entire defensive third for your team. It makes it very hard to get the ball out. It can make it very confusing if you're not communicating well. But Louisville did do a pretty good job of this. They were playing a park the bus strategy, not from ahead, but from the entire game. They started with 5 in the back. They played a 5-4-1, I want to say. So they were very defensive minded in this one. And like you said, Gabby Cazellas finished with 9 saves, a career high on 10 shots on goal. Unfortunately, 1 did sneak by her. Louisville managed to only get 2 shots for the entire game. they got outshot 26-2, which is not ideal, as well as Florida State leading the corner race 8-1. So very obvious from that Louisville was behind and playing in the defensive third for the entire game. The goal was unlucky. Gabby came out, played good defensively, and collapsed on a runner in the box, blocked the ball away. It just happened to go straight to a Florida State player, and with your goalkeeper on the ground and an offensive player standing at the top of the box receiving the ball in an open goal, that's going to be a score for the other team most of the time. So that's the one goal difference in this game. Louisville played very well, I thought. I don't like to see an extremely defensive style like that. I think that Louisville plays better playing a balanced setup so that they can actually move the ball and try to get some attack. We didn't see that today. Or sorry, Sunday. It was definitely not today. We didn't see that out of them on Sunday, just because of the opportunities they were putting themselves behind the eight ball a little bit. But it was encouraging to see that they were able to hold so strongly defensively when they were playing only defense in this one. It was basically like an offense versus defense scrimmage in practice. So,
Jared, if you take a look at the stats on this thing, just for face value and what they are, you see that the Cards were outshot 26-2, shots on goal 10-1 in favor of FSU's, as Case had mentioned to us. Still, this was a heck of an effort against a very good Florida State team. I think maybe the best team or one of the best teams in the nation, definitely in the ACC, Jared.
Yeah, Florida State, their program just in general has been a very strong program. One of the one seeds in the NCAA tournament last year, just a couple seasons removed from being NCAA champions. They're well established, good coach. Their system works well for them. They tend to overpower opponents rather quickly, especially in the first half, get that early lead, and then just pour it on them afterwards. Louisville did a good job preventing that. The nil score at halftime was very promising to see, especially when you're on the road. As Case mentioned, it was just the unfortunate block by Cazelis that went straight to a Florida State offensive player. But other than that, the game plan worked well. They went in knowing that Florida State's offense would be aggressive, which, looking at the stats, is pretty obvious with the 26 shots, 10 on goal. But the fact that U of L stuck with their game plan from start to finish is good, and that at no point did they really panic even when that goal went in at the 60th minute.
Cards are I'm sure already back on campus, and will take to the pitch at Lynn Stadium on Thursday. They will take on Syracuse. Some of the things, maybe Jared and Jeff, I know you don't follow it very closely, but chime in here on some of the things that the Cards might kind of look to work on and get prepared for against Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State's among the cream of the crop at the ACC, so the Syracuse match should be a little easier to tackle. I'm hoping they can get back on the winning side of things, get a little build up a little confidence again. Florida State's good. I mean, you get to come away with a one loss there is not bad. And, you can't really get too down in the dumps on that. So, worthwhile effort. You learn from it. You move on. It's every loss is, well, every win, every game is a learning opportunity, but losses particularly. So, yeah.
Case, as far as things go for that, I know we're going to probably look a lot at Amina Ekic to do some great things in this one. You take a look at it, Syracuse has only played one game so far, as they have gone up against Pittsburgh and fell 0-2 to the Panthers at Pittsburgh. So that obviously, I think, kind of bodes well for Louisville, and the fact that Syracuse hasn't won a game yet. But do they need to get a little more involved than she's already been? I mean, she seemed to have been everywhere in the last two games.
Yeah, I think that she's as involved as she's going to be. Like I mentioned, when you're playing Park the Bus from the start, some of your more shining offensive players can't do that so much, especially when you play a really compact lineup. It's one thing to play the standard 4-2-3-1 that Louisville likes to play, and skew that defensively. That can allow you to still get forward a little bit and maintain some shape. But when you're playing a formation that wants to put the entire team at the back anyway, then even when you try to break out offensively, you're not really set up to do that. Louisville was playing, like I mentioned, that 5-4-1, very compact, very tight. Your zone, your formational position, when you're set up that way, is pretty much you're going to have 5 players that are supposed to remain in the defensive third or at least the defensive half, and then the next 4 maybe play that middle third, and you're not really supposed to get forward on offense at all. Akic does very well getting forward. She does well passing to the wings and working the ball through the middle at the same time. Or she can do both, right? She can play it outside. She can work the ball through the middle on her own. The formation just didn't set itself up for that. When you look at this game against Syracuse, I'm looking at their match against Pittsburgh, and it was kind of a mirror of Louisville versus Florida State. Pittsburgh outshot Syracuse 27-4, 12-1 on frame, 8-3 on corner kicks. Pitt just really controlled the match offensively, managed to not score until the second half. Both of those goals coming in the 58th and 76th minutes. But if that's how Syracuse's offense and defense are going to be, then I think Louisville is going to have a good time with that, because they do such a good job playing balanced, and we know that their defense can show up when they need to, as evidenced against Florida State there. So it'll be interesting to see how Louisville bounces back from this. I think that they will just go back to their standard balanced style of play and their standard formation. And I think that we're going to see Amina Ekic and Delaney Snyder get right back to what they were doing against Miami and not be shackled down by playing so defensively against a very strong team like Florida State.
Something I know Cardinal fans will certainly wait to see. And based on what we saw last night when the men's soccer team was playing a very good Wake Forest team, it appeared, I don't know, what would you guesstimate, about maybe 200 in the stands in there, maybe more than that. They didn't show the stands very often at Lynn Stadium, but there were some people in attendance there. Hopefully the protocols are going to be the same for women's soccer. I haven't seen any updates on that, Jared. Is that a pretty safe and fair number, you think, for people to be in that Lynn Stadium environment?
It's an outdoor stadium that if they had opened up all 4 sides, you could fit a lot more people in. I know that it seems like there's been a decline in attendance over the last few seasons for both men and women's soccer, which is kind of sad. But in terms of how many people are normally there, I felt like they could still easily and comfortably fit everybody in the stadium. So it's kind of sad to see that they aren't opening it up to more people, maybe even at least include the season ticket holders, which I know would help Case out in that situation, as well as a few other people. I'm not really sure what they were doing in terms. I didn't get a chance to watch that one either. If they're having the ball kids out there, or if the players are responsible for grabbing their own when it goes out. So maybe one of y'all had seen that a little bit better. But I think in terms of trying to keep the pitch clear, it's nice that they limit the number of people that are out on the pitch itself.
I didn't watch the Louisville men's game last night. U of L lists the attendance as 112 total. And I have seen multiple teams do it different ways. I think that the 2 matches that I'm thinking are the game versus Miami and the game versus Florida State. They both did it differently. One did balls on cones for out of bounds plays, and the other one did ball kids. So another sign that the ACC has no interest in unifying their response to things and how teams are going to manage stuff. But that's where we are.
And I did switch over to watch a little bit of it. From what I could tell, there were no ball kids in Lynn Stadium trekking things down. They basically had things like the playground closed, the boiling point, which is, of course, over on the, I guess you would call it the east side over there, the little triangle seating area where we would often see student athletes and such. In that area, that was closed down. And of course, they weren't wearing masks out there. I guess that's one thing that we've seen in other sports, but still, if they can get 100 in there for Thursday night women's soccer, the protocols being what they are, we'll see. I don't know, Jeff. It's kind of interesting that what are they going to do as far as contract tracing goes here for like the next upcoming event, which we'll get into a second, field hockey today. So far, field hockey is on, despite a breakout on campus and how does contract tracing and all that. I'm a bit confused. I thought they might have seriously considered canceling today's field hockey stuff. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, contact tracing, from what I understand at least, is mostly after a case has been detected, and it involves, hey, let me ask the person who has the case, where have you been in the past roughly 2 weeks, that you might have picked this up, and then try to track down people that were there. Obviously you don't have a roster of people who have attended something like this, so it makes it a little more difficult to do that process. Um, if they're maybe as part of the limiting it to guests and a limited number of students, as they've said for field hockey, then they kind of do have a little bit of a roster of people who are going to be there, that they can say, okay, we've had a case that was up in the stands. Let's contact people that were there based on the contact information we have, and let them know, hey, it's a possibility, get it checked out. It's the whole concept of contact tracing. And I think that influences part of the design of of how they're doing these events, is to be able to get that roster of people to be able to contact if need be.
Such strange and interesting times here in 2020, and then talking about fan levels and the protocols and such that have to be going through. But they will indeed take the pitch today at Traeger Stadium. Louisville bringing in Duke. A Duke team that has been great in the past, maybe kind of slipped the notch last year. Not really sure what they've got coming into this year, but one thing we know for sure, Louisville has Meche Pastor, and that's a pretty darn good thing, isn't it, Jared?
She's fun to watch. Her ball control, her handling of it's unreal. It's almost mesmerizing in a way. I remember watching on some of the scrimmages in the past, and they would just kind of goof around at the end and do just some PKs, and just watching her and see what her creativity is. It's exciting, and you never know what's going to happen when she's on the field. Uh, Defenses really have to take account for how good she is, and often you have to double team her, which allows scoring opportunities for everybody else around you when you're so focused on one player. And I think there's a very strong supporting cast around her that will allow for some nice scoring opportunities this weekend against Duke.
Jeff, the days of Aisha McFerrin are gone now, but the Louisville field hockey team still has two very, very good goalkeepers in place who kind of alternate back and forth a little bit. What about the strength of having two good goalkeepers in there for Louisville today?
Yeah, you have the opportunity to tweak that, the selection of goalkeeper based on the scenario that you're in. We've seen in the past that Hollenbar tends to play in more of the live ball, um, regular regular periods of hockey play, and they tend to use Sam Menrath for uh, any penalty stroke tiebreakers and such. Which so anytime you have multiple options gives you the possibility to tweak and select based on the situation you're in. So that's always kind of nice. But it looks like, from I think what we saw last year, Hollenbar got the bulk of the minutes with Sam Minrath coming in for some opportunities. So Minrath is the younger of the two, so still developing her skills. But look forward to seeing how well she does. Everything I hear is positive about her. So I think the future for goalkeeping for U of L field hockey is plenty bright.
This one today on the ACC Network Extra. Tomorrow, of course, it'll be on the ACC Network. Duke was actually scheduled to begin their season last week here, case against Syracuse, but that one was postponed. Those two matches were postponed, so this will be the season opener for Duke. Was there any official reason on why those matches got canceled? I'm praying it wasn't a COVID scare.
Not that I saw. It was just noted in U of L's. It was actually noted in U of L's preview for today's match that match last week, matches last week for Duke were postponed. So, no, I don't have any information. I could probably do a little bit of digging and see what we find, but come back to me on that. Like you mentioned, hopefully not COVID, but probably COVID because that's just how it goes.
Yesterday afternoon, the Louisville athletes were involved in something that wasn't sports related, but was definitely social justice related when they had a march against injustice on campus. As the members of various different sports teams, we know, for example, Louisville athletes from the women's basketball team, track and field were there, women's soccer, softball all joined in, men's soccer wasn't there, of course, having a match that day. The basketball team from the men's side announced that they would be holding this protest march around campus and did invite people to come down on it. I didn't see a whole lot about this. I saw a couple of pictures, but to kind of describe the intent and the nature behind this case.
Yeah, obviously, we've seen since the grand jury results announcements earlier this week in the Breonna Taylor investigations, protests that, like I mentioned, had been ongoing throughout the summer, rekindled a bit in the last few days. The Louisville men's basketball program wanted to lead in their own protest, a march, and they led that from Cardinal Stadium. I didn't get confirmation about every single team, but from Instagram and from some other pictures confirmed that women's soccer was there, track and field was there, softball was there, women's basketball was there. We know that volleyball was playing. We know that men's soccer was getting ready to play, field hockey about to play with their match today. I did confirm real quickly that Syracuse was the cause of the postponement against Duke, but for contact tracing. Not any positive cases. So, and that may have been a part of Coach Sowery's decision to, if she, this is complete speculation, right? Like I said, we have Instagram and Twitter to kind of go off of. There's not a lot of information, but you can see a coach saying, we're trying to get these games played. We want to keep ourselves out of risk situations in a pandemic because it is what it is. From all the pictures that I saw, everyone was well masked. Everyone was doing what they needed to be doing, kind of staying in their own groups that they would be in for sporting events anyway, as far as social distancing goes. So that was good. But the men's basketball team also announced with some speeches after the march ended that they would be putting some action to their protests as well, having a voter registration drive scheduled for next Saturday at Shawnee Park. That's Saturday, October 3rd at the Shawnee Park basketball courts from 11 to 1, trying to get people registered to vote in the upcoming elections.
Certainly something that I hope people who have not registered to vote yet will consider going down and registering to do so. The overall series between Duke and Louisville in field hockey, Duke has a strong, basically kind of lead in the overall series, 11-5 all time. The Cards did win the last contest almost 11 months ago, as you pointed out the article, case down in Durham. As you look at that purely from a viewpoint, Jared, of being down on the field, taking photos of this thing today, what are some of the things that you're going to look for in this match to kind of highlight and get shots of?
Well, just being the season opener, I want to see how prepared both teams are, really, how well they are in shape. Because practice situation versus a real game situation are quite different, as any student athlete will ever tell you. So a lot of it is just how much preparation they put into things, if they think they're in shape enough, and how they're going to handle the first game of the season. You got to shake off those jitters and get back down to things and realize, oh, we're playing a season. We got to do this. So that's kind of the most important factor when you have a season opener.
Certainly, we wish the Cards the best of luck on that. That's 1 o'clock today. Think of other interest, guys, and things that we can talk about. Certainly, the WNBA. We only have one former Louisville great in action still there in Angel McCoughtry playing for the Las Vegas Aces. They unfortunately took a loss the other evening, 77-68 to the Connecticut Sun. No, not Gino's team. This is the pro team.
There's not a
Angel.
whole lot of space between
Yeah,
those,
there's
but
not a lot of difference between the teams either. But Angel McCoughtry coming in starting out or ending the game pretty strong for Las Vegas as she had 14 points and 7 rebounds, only 21 minutes, 2 very early fouls on Angel. Kind of had her sidelined for a lot of the first half. But Asia Wilson, who's been so strong for the Aces all season long, led them in scoring with 20 points. The Aces, though, the number 1 seed in this WNBA tournament, guys, are down 2 games to 1. I'm a bit surprised by that. I will say 2 things and then turn it over to you guys on this. First of all, Connecticut started the season 0-5. Came into the tournament as the 7th seed. And all of a sudden, here they are on the verge of maybe pulling off a very, very big upset on Las Vegas. Second of all, let's not forget that Connecticut was in the finals last year of the WNBA championships and returned a lot of players from that aspect and team. So we get the 4th game in this coming up. I think it is a Sunday tip-off. Jeff, some of the things that you're going to look for in this one?
yeah, and obviously, as a U of L fan, I gotta watch to see how Angel does. Right, I want to see her do well. She's been a stalwart in the WNBA, playing most of her time in Atlanta. It's her first year away with the Las Vegas Aces. She's so much fun to watch. She's always been fun to watch. Back in the early 2000s when we were watching her in Freedom Hall. I just love watching her play. She's fun to watch, and it's good basketball. It's one of the reasons I've always kind of liked the WNBA is because there's just so much good competitive basketball. You don't get a lot of blowouts for the most part, particularly once you get into the playoffs. I mean, somewhat true in any sport in any league, but certainly the case in the WNBA. You can't count on a team being a dynasty victory always. So yeah, it's just fun. I just love it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like the format that they're using here also with 5 games for the semifinals and the finals in this and having single elimination in order to get to that point. Although I think some of the teams that got eliminated would have preferred it being a best out of 3 early on. Still, I think it's the best format that you can come up. Almost kind of a scare about the wobble, though, Jeff. In case there was a situation here where Seattle didn't actually get to play in their opening game and had to have it postponed.
Yeah, I think Jeff has more information about that when he was the one that brought it up. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. So they postponed the first game of the series, and consequently their series is 2-0 with Seattle in the lead versus the 2-1 that the Aces and the Sun are playing right now. Because they're a little behind on that because of that postponement. It was based on inconclusive tests. And they were very explicit about it being inconclusive. With the some of the people responding, "Hey, it's either yes or no." It's, no, not really. It isn't. They're, testing is you're measuring, values of certain chemicals and antibodies, whatever, right? Whatever they're testing for. I don't exactly know the medical. I got a D in biology, and was happy to be done with it. So, so I'm not the expert on that part.
I didn't even know to take it.
Yeah. So,
I couldn't even
well,
spell it.
this was high school. I got a D, and I was like, okay, I'm done.
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
I'm out. Yeah. So this is not my area of expertise by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know that medical tests are not always conclusive. There are values and measurements and ranges, and there's errors, and hopefully the tests are showing you something that's beyond that kind of mid-range sort of response. And so they had some inclusive tests. They did the responsible and careful thing, postponed the game, did another round of testing. Everybody was cleared. Hey, great, go on, right? No problem at that point. So, um, it's a little frustrating to have games delayed. I'm sure that's tedious and annoying. They're already living in this bubble, the wobble. That's a bit of a stressor anyway. We've seen that all throughout the season. But it's the responsible thing to do right now. They go on and things are great. And Seattle's now up 2-0, and I think I was hearing the stats that no team has ever come back from a 2-0 deficit in a playoff series in the WNBA. So
Yeah,
looks
since
good
they
for them.
started this 5 games format
Right.
for the semifinals and the finals, nobody has ever been down 0-2 and come back and taken that actual series shift. So you're right on that one.
So it's good news for Seattle there.
Yeah, and when you take a look at Seattle, and then normally when you break down the roster and look at the players on there, obviously you think of Stewie, Brianna Stewart, Sue Bird, who's been such a great player for so many times. But what about the efforts of Jewel Lloyd here? Holy cow! In the first game, I think she had 25 points. In the next game, the second game, she had 20 points. Former Notre Dame ball player. Jewel Lloyd has been a pleasant surprise, I think, for Seattle. I've got to think that, Jared.
Yeah, I don't follow WNBA as closely as you all do, but when it comes to postseason time, it makes it a lot more exciting. There's a lot more on the line when you get to postseason. For me, because I don't follow it as closely, it's kind of an opportunity for me to just sit back and enjoy a sport. It's one that I typically don't cover other than one we talk about here. So it's rare for me to actually just watch and enjoy. I'd love to see all of these go into a fifth game. The winner takes all type thing. But other than that, I can't say I've really got a strong opinion on any particular player or team other than just wanting to see Angel do well and maybe get another ring.
And I think that will sum it up for a lot of us as well.
Yeah.
Hoping to see our former Cardinals play well. We've only got one left out there in Angel.
I can't say I'm surprised at Jewel Lloyd doing well. She gave us fits when she was at Notre Dame too. So
She was a force to be reckoned with.
right. I mean, she's a very good player.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, oh, Jewel's doing yeah, she's doing well. Yep. All right. Okay. Not
So the
shocked
stat
in the
is
slightest.
she was shooting over 70% so far in the semifinals in 2 games.
Yeah.
That
It's amazing.
good shooting text there. She's hitting the bullseye with every pull of the trigger. But so let's kind of roll into some final thoughts here. We've covered a lot of ground today, guys. Talked about a lot of different subjects. I'll go ahead and I think Jeff kind of let you start off with the final thoughts segment today.
Let's hope that this is a little bit inward looking. Let's hope we can get a good podcast recording out. Case and I have been working on some changes, and it's
The
been a
boys
little bit
are
of a comedy of errors this morning. So
No.
yeah, so we'll get it there. We're learning some new technologies as part of it, all in the quest to make this a better experience for our listeners. So yeah.
the guys have got this going in every different set of directions of initials that I can think of, except for the BBC.
Yeah,
If
and
it's on the
mostly
BBC,
being frustrated by it actually. So
yeah, I think he spilled a bowl of alphabet soup on his lap, and he's just going, "Look at this iOS BMT! Holy cow!" All right, Case, take it for your final thoughts.
Yeah, like Jeff said, maybe it's not just the technology issues that we have, but if we could, press the correct buttons on our own computers, then we probably
That's
have
part
better
of
luck
it.
too, with both of us having our own errors this morning. Final thought today. I don't know. It's been an interesting week, for a multitude of reasons. I just encourage everyone to stay safe in whatever it is that you're doing. You can apply that statement to all kinds of different things and how you think of it. Just stay safe, be good to one another, and that's all I got. It's kind of an interesting type of final thought for the show, but that's what I got this week. That's how I'm feeling.
Always a very valid and very, I think, nice one to have is stay safe. I think it's a fine final thought. Jared, we're going to be catching up here, my friend, in about a little less than 2 hours down at Treasure Stadium. Some final thoughts from you today?
Got my camera charged, ready to go. All my stuff is packed. So I'm just excited to be able to go watch some sports and take pictures again.
And certainly a great final thought there, one that will be taking place down at Traeger Stadium, as I too will be down there in the press box that I understand will have just 8 people on it compared to the normal 20 that usually jam in there for field hockey. Protocols that had to go through, as Jared and I had to go through this morning, had to do an online assessment testing to check off certain items to make sure that we were okay, and that the fact that we would wear our masks at all times. Certainly we'll have a temperature scan when we get there. I'm sure the seating distancing will be spaced and such. It's just going to be flat weird, okay? I'm going to come out and say it after covering a lot of events live for so many years in Louisville Cardinal athletics. This is going to be something kind of new, kind of different. I can say that I'm looking forward to it, but there's also a certain amount of trepidation going in there too, to see how it all turns out. So, stay safe. I like that. I'm an echo. Let's stay safe today. All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast today. We hope you had some fun, maybe learned a thing or two, and we'll see you all next week back to our regular time, as far as I know right now, of 11 o'clock. Unless, of course, you know something we don't. Everybody have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you.